just to kind of finish up on the last video, particularly the last part of the last video. It's so interesting to me how some of these go. So I started off with the video with what I thought was some pretty cool stuff out of the scriptures, and there wasn't any comments on that, but more of the latter concerning the V and how whether you got it or not, and I was made aware of a fellow YouTuber, Jared, who had put out this video about following the prophet, right? And I watched it, and I heard, and so I did kind of a combat to that. And just the dynamics of how it all worked was really interesting. The video's been taken down, not mine, but his. So you can't go back and see. But what I heard was, now look, okay, the title of my video included, I was called all these bad things. The words that Jared used to describe apostates, I guess, or people that aren't aligned with the church anymore. That wasn't the thing, okay? But because I don't really, I'm so rough around the edges, stuff like that just goes right over me. I mean, like I said, I was raised in the trucking industry and worked on the loading docks, and some guys and even some gals have a way of just letting those words just flow in such a pattern, and I was around it for so long, for so many years, and I thought I did pretty well not adopting that. But what happened is that it doesn't have much of an effect on me, for good or for bad. We don't watch a lot of movies and things, but when we do, and if there's some language in there, if I'm with anybody, for me, it just kind of goes over my head. So the language wasn't the issue. What was the issue for me was the transition from kind of these crazy groups to then just transitioning real smooth into these crazy people who decided not to follow the prophet by not getting the V. And then I was like, okay, I have to comment on this, because here we go. Now, Jared has a lot of followers, and they love him, and Jared puts out some awesome videos. But what are those people going to do when they go back to their wards and branches and churches, their ward houses, a steakhouse, and what are they going to do now? They're going to have that in their mind. So that's why I did what I did. Like, we got to stop this. We just got to stop this. And that's why I went through the two different letters, and then what the handbook says, and how people are not apostate. People are not opposed to the prophet because they didn't get the V. We just have to stop that. And here we are, over a year later from the original letter, and still, this happened. Okay, so a cool thing, Jared took that one video down, which I was kind of disappointed in, not because I would like to see if and hear if what I saw and heard was what I saw and heard, because I shouldn't say many, a few is three or more, right? Of Jared's followers commented on my channel, saying that I had twisted what he had said and what he had done. And I really don't think I did. I think there was a definite, and so some of you who did get to see it before it was taken down, say that people who opposed that letter and did not get the V were not following the prophet. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So, but anyway, the video was taken down, and then Jared did a video of apology. It was kind of a cool setting. We got to see his chickens, and somebody had commented, one of his followers had commented on mine and said, hey, he's posted an apology. So I thought, good, well, I'll see. So apologies are awesome. As if you followed me for a while, you know that I've made apologies. And the older I get, it's much easier, and you just, it just is the way it is. I'm an expert, I guess, at apologizing because I do it so often. But apologizing for what? This is the interesting thing. So the video that Jared put out, which that rainstorm was awesome. I love to see nature just, do its thing. But there was an acknowledgement of, I shouldn't be using that kind of language. That's awesome. If he feels bad about it and wants to apologize for that, that's okay. What was interesting though was that he made the statement that people who got the V, people who did not get the V aren't people that aren't following the prophet. Now, I said that. I didn't say that very well. He said that people who didn't get the V would not be considered individuals that were not following the prophet. Something like that. And I thought, wow, that's not just an apology. It really wasn't. It was a change. He has a different viewpoint. Now, he did say that at some point, or in the past, that people who had the Spirit tell them not to, that's fine. I'm sure he did. He said he did, and I'm sure he did in the past. But this particular video, I didn't hear that. The one that got deleted, I didn't hear that. So to me, that was a change. Well, I brought that up to a couple of his followers that commented on mine, and they said I misconstrued everything. And, I don't know what to think of it. I thought, well, if they're following him and he apologized, he must have apologized for something. And if it was just language, then, no harm, no foul. But I think he changed his tone on those that choose not to get the V, and they're standing in the church. And if that's the case, I'm thrilled, because I see it as a big coming together. A lot of people don't want to hear about it. They're sick of it. They just want to turn away. I suspect most of those folks, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong, but I suspect most of those folks are ones that got the V and either somewhat regret it or don't want to think about it. I don't know. I don't know. But if you didn't get it and you were treated differently at church, which I'm one, called right out in gospel doctrine class, and I wasn't the one that initiated it. I was just, sitting there, and Sue was there too. And Sue's actually the one that responded. It was awesome. But the teacher that day knew that we hadn't, and brought it up that we weren't following the prophet. And then all the social distancing, if you chose not to wear a mask, because it did say that if distancing is not possible, then you should wear a mask. Well, we chose to distance, so we didn't have to. And then that puts you in a different category. People are staring at you, it's like, whatever. Anyway, so apologies, confessions, we all do it. We all have need to do it. So I'm glad Jared felt, some people were saying, oh, it makes me sad that you feel sad. And I'm like, what? Why would you feel sad that someone regrets and is wanting to change? Sorrow is the greatest thing. It's one of the most wonderful things. I don't think people, I shouldn't generalize, but it's interesting that was the take of several people on his, because I went and looked on the comments on his, and it was tons of positive. Jared, you have no need to apologize. You're awesome. You're so humble. When you were sad, I was sad. And don't be sad, kind of thing. But really, that's a good thing. I know when I've screwed up, that's one of the first symptoms of like, why am I bummed out here? Well, maybe you've done something. Okay. Oh yeah. Boom. It's right there, right? It's right there. It's the law. Like some of the Orthodox Jews, they have the law right there on their forehead. And that's usually where we find the thing that we've kind of screwed up on. So being sad is a great thing. It's good. It causes you to do it. When I was, so not only have I apologized a lot and confessed, and I'm not, I haven't, when I was a younger teenager, I confessed of some things that were really not good, okay? But since that time, confessions have been of a calmer nature, okay? And not where I would need to go to, priesthood authority, but still confessing to the Lord of mistakes and to people, right, that you've offended or whatever. And so an apology can be a confession. Isn't necessarily an apology, but an apology usually includes a confession. I did something, right? Does that make sense? So I immediately thought of not only am I an expert because of my need to apologize several times in my life, several times in a year, right? But I have been in positions where I receive those either confessions or apologies, and it's amazing. I remember when I was a YSA bishop, and the Sundays, this is no joke, but we had chairs set up outside the bishop's office for after sacrament meeting or the block meeting, whatever, and have individuals that needed to come in and visit about one thing or another. And then that reminded me of this. I might have said this before, but it's so dang funny. But I think he would been the bishop maybe either right before me or of that YSA ward, or maybe there was one in front of him. But he was fairly recently the bishop of the YSA, and when I got called, we were talking, just to kind of help me, understand what was going on. And he said, "Man, they're going to line up." And he said, "I came home and one day, and he said to his wife, he said, 'Honey, these kids are having more sex than we are.'" And I just laughed, because shortly after that, it took a while for them to warm up to me, the young people, but you get these confessions. It's not funny. As I'm laughing, it's not funny. It's a serious transgression, serious sin that needs to be taken care of. But these raging hormones and these young people and all this stuff, and there was one kid I had to meet with, returned missionary. I was a YSA bishop, and he was sweating so bad. This seat, remember those old cloth chairs that were in church and bishop's offices and stuff? They probably still are. It was soaking wet because he was so sad. He was sad. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so repentant and so sorry for messing up. And I had another cool experience which really helped me realize in a tiny way just how the atonement works. Had a young lady come in. So I was a YSA bishop in Park City. So our ward we called it the accordion ward, because during ski season, kids come from all over to work at the ski resorts. Our ward would go like this. Then in the spring, it would go like this. And then summer, it would kind of go like this, because kids that were away for school were back home, that were the locals, so it's just like this, boom, boom, boom. And kind of difficult to kind of figure out how to do everything. But one of these coming and going individuals came in, and she had to confess some serious stuff, right? And we started on the path of helping her, get square with Jesus, right? So this was right when I started, and about a year later, and I was with her for a few months, and then time went on. About a year later, I was actually didn't know it at the time, but I was going to get released to become a family ward bishop, but I didn't know that at the time. But so it was right towards the end of me being the YSA bishop, and she came in. She goes, "Bishop, I'm back in town working, da da da." And I said, "Oh, great!" I recognized her, blah blah blah, And she said, "Can I meet with you after church?" Absolutely, So we met, and she goes, "I just want you to know that everything is still going great, da da da." And I guess she could see kind of the blankness in my look, which probably is all the time, not deer in the headlight kind of thing. And she goes, "Do you remember what a year or so ago, what we were working through?" And I said, "Honestly, I remember that we had some time together, but I can't, and I could not remember." And this is, I'm not making this up. This is legit, right? And she just burst into tears, and she says, "You really don't know." I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I feel embarrassed, but I don't remember." And she said, "Good." And she said it was serious. And that's where I got that from. And it was just an awesome experience of seeing someone go through something and then me forget it as the key holder, priesthood leader. And then she stayed, going, and it was a great experience. I had so many of those, not particularly like that, but just just so many in that YSA situation. Just a blessing to see that. When I was stake president, I had a lot, and some of those were just sad and tragic, but also because there is a wake of destruction in a sense, but the individual has to deal with that wake that goes out. But the redemptive power for that individual to know that they are forgiven, and realizing that there's still consequences of their actions that are going to happen. It's the ripple effect. It's throwing the stone in the pond, and those ripples go out. But the redemptive power will eventually fix those things for the repentive, in my opinion. I totally believe that. But the older the person, it seems, the more potential of really so many other people being involved. As a mission president, these I always hated the phrase belated confession, but it's part of the verbiage, and every stake president and every mission president knows the phrase of belated confession. So in other words, a young man typically, but not always, but did some things, and I found that it was legit, that it was one of two things. One is that they honestly didn't really feel like it was that big of a deal, what they did, just because of their background or whatever. Not taught very well, maybe, I don't know. But see, where we served in the Salt Lake City West mission, we had missionaries from all over the world coming to us. So a lot of our missionaries, many of them, were first generation members of the church. They were the first in their families to become members, and we received them. Others came from were members and their parents, but they were from areas where the church wasn't very strong and all this kind of stuff. A lot from broken homes, lots of them. By broken, not your idealistic, mom and dad and happy kids and, going off to church and going to Disneyland on vacation and or Europe, whatever the case may be. But more of a, fending for yourself, being with a single parent, trying to, that kind of thing, being a child of that, which brings its challenges, but also makes you strong too in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of good things. But in any event, you'd have these situations where people would come, and as they got into their missions and started feeling things, the light bulb would go on in their head. They'd be more sensitive to the Spirit, and they'd go, dang, I need to take care of something. Now, some would come from very strong, active homes, and maybe even have a dad that was a bishop or, stake president, had it all. And they just couldn't bring themselves to confess, to deal with all the drama that the family would have to deal with because the mission would be delayed. And they just thought, I'll just kind of confess enough that makes it look like I've, but not we called it the peeling of the onion, the layers, and you get that crusty layer on the outside. And then you get the inner one, and then the inner one, and then the inner one. And finally you get to the center. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's just this human nature thing, So those were the two scenarios. Either someone from a strong, active family that's just afraid disappoint or to fess up, and they knew it was wrong, versus those that did something, but because of their background, they didn't realize how bad it was until they got out on the mission. I hope that is understandable. This is what I found. So you work with them in different ways, right? And but there's always a call to the stake president as a mission president. And I had been a stake president, and I had those phone calls, and you take it personal because you've interviewed them, and you know, are you sure? And you get specific, about certain things and explain things, right? Do some splaining. And so as a stake president, you get a call from mission president. You have Elder so-and-so, and you're, yeah. And I learned really quick, say, well, I know you're not calling to tell me what a great job he's doing, or that everything's wonderful, and quite often it'd be, he's actually doing really a great job, but he's got some issues that need to be taken care of. And here's how it works. It's not the stake president that decides on his own what happens to this I'll just say young man. It happened occasionally to sisters, but mostly it's the elders. And then, so there's the stake president's involved. If it's serious, the mission president, obviously, he's the one that received the belated confession. But then there's a committee, downtown Salt Lake City, that's a committee of two or four general authorities, 70s that are on the committee, as well as paid individuals that are in the missionary or the mission department. And they have a committee. And the ideal thing is for everybody to be on the same page to decide what course of action needs to take place. And, we had the gamut. We feel very blessed, Sue and I, because we didn't have a lot of this, and almost all of them turned out really wonderful, just positive experiences, just to see the burden lifted. And when a young person gets to the point where they say, I don't care what happens, I just want to be square with God. Those are just, that's the atonement of Jesus Christ. And then you just see miracles happen, and wonderful things. Probably some of the greatest things on a mission. You would think it would be individuals joining the church and being baptized and receiving that gateway ordinance, which absolutely is, it's gathering Israel. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's amazing. But gathering Israel is also those that are born in the covenant or have joined already and need to stay on that path. Need to stay on that path, and through repentance. And sometimes it's severe. It's the sackcloth and ashes kind of repentance. So we saw both, worked with both, and really saw what President Kimball coined the miracle of forgiveness, the absolute miracle of forgiveness. So I wouldn't say I'm all-knowing or anything like that, but I've had a ton of experiences with both apologizing myself, confessing myself, and then receiving those, being the first one that someone comes to. And, when I first had these experiences, it was exhausting. Because in a small way, you're taking that burden and putting it on you, in a sense. So the Savior helps us understand a little bit of what this is like, because once they've shared it, you're carrying that understanding of what's happened, right? And then through a lot of prayer and understanding, and I'll admit, and I hope the Lord forgives me. I hope I did the right thing in every case. I took this more serious than anything that I did as either a bishop, stake president, or mission president, was dealing with these situations. If fasting was possible, I did it. If it wasn't, if it just came on, I sometimes would say, I just need a moment by myself for a minute, no big deal. I know that probably freaked him out, but I just needed to get the conduit, And the experiences of that taught me so much. I had nothing but very right angle, 90-degree angle edges on me. I knew what was right, I knew what was wrong, and over those years, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or 15 years of being in that kind of position, I had a lot of 90-degree angles chipped off, a lot of those sharp edges chipped off, just because each time I would see someone go through that process, I would go through that process, and I would realize my weaknesses, and they might not even be related to what was confessed to me, but just that, the compassion, the understanding, the judgment part of it, the restitution or restoring what you can, all those things. So it was interesting watching that video from Jared. It just flooded back those memories, and it's good. I love Jared. He puts out great material. He works hard on what he does. We have different approaches. I'm much older, and we have different focuses, and that's all good. But I also think it's good that when we have something we stand for, that we defend it. And I'm a defender of those that chose not to get the V, but are still in the good ship Zion. And I will defend them, and I will be their advocate and a voice. I'm a small voice. I get that, and I don't have any ecclesiastical aspirations. I'm not, and I don't have any. I'm not speaking for the church, but I am speaking for somebody that feels it. That I know I follow the prophet. I know I sustain President Nelson as a prophet, seer, and revelator. I raise my hand and do that. And when that's challenged because I didn't get the V, yeah, I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna call it out. And I will continue to do so. I will continue to do so. So if that's something, because I get this every time I bring it up, I get, why are you so obsessed with this? Well, the reason is that I think it's done a lot of damage, and it's very divisive, and it's bigger than what people think. It really is. And it's universal, it's throughout the world, and we as saints need to find the things we have in common, not the differences that we have. I can, okay, here's another, for instance, like the Book of Mormon geography. And someone just went, geez, why is he doing this? Well, that can be very divisive in certain communities. I have my ideas. They're pretty strong. I feel like I've studied it, this and that. But I can totally get along with somebody that has just a total opposite view, and joke or not joke necessarily, but be lighthearted, not light-minded, right? But lighthearted about, okay, the church's position is there's no official position. So that should be ours, okay? It's interesting, it's a hobby, but as soon as it becomes a doctrinal thing to you, and yet the church's position is we don't have a position, you're probably gonna get in trouble. Now, I haven't always been that way. I've been argumentative with that, but it's past me now. I still like to have good discussions as to why, where I think, and blah blah blah. But I'm not going there. But this V thing is totally different. This is an attack on whether I follow the prophet or not, and I'm not backing down. And it is a hill that I will die on, and I'll tell you why. I feel that it's important for people to know that just because you didn't get the V, you're still in good standing with the Lord, with the church, with the prophet. You still have a recommend. You can still do all the things. And I'm just going to keep pounding that if I hear it. If I don't hear anything, and I've gone several videos, you won't believe this, but I've gone many videos in a row where I didn't even bring it up. But then this happened and I had to. So feeling sad is good if it leads you to change. We all have the need to apologize at times. I think it's a gift to not be offensive. I don't have that gift, but I know people that do, and they're real pleasant to be around. But not everybody's that way, and not everybody gets offended. I saw some of the comments are like, oh, I didn't get anything. And as far as the language goes, I was just kind of goofing with that. That meant nothing to me. Calling somebody this or that or da-da-da, or a group. You're not pinpointing anybody specifically like an individual. Like I've called out individuals who I think are a danger to the church and to society. But they're published, their books are out there. I'm not just going to go, I know somebody I'm going to tell you about. No, these are somebody that are pushing it and promoting it. And those people are fair game. And let if what I say isn't legit on it, point it out. But so there's differences. There's times, it's like when Christ called out certain Pharisees, called them out. Very needful. This wasn't teddy bear Jesus. Tipping over tables, whip in hand, cleansing the temple. Which reminds me, did you guys read in Jeremiah? This is so cool. I'll do another video on this where I'll cover some of this, but this is really interesting because this is Jeremiah 7. This is in our Come Follow Me this week. I read this, or listened to it this morning and then read it. This is Jeremiah 7:7. or 7:8. Jeremiah 7, verse 8. Behold, ye trust in lying words that cannot profit, while ye steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not. And then verse 10, and come and stand before me in this house, the temple, which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered to do all these abominations. It's actually a question. We are delivered to do all these abominations because we're in the temple. We can do this. And then listen to this response. This is why we know Christ was a student of the scriptures. And he knew this scripture. In this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes. Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Lord. A den of robbers, a den of thieves. It's exactly what Christ said at the temple. Isn't that cool? There's so many times as we study the Old Testament, we go, oh, that's where Jesus got that from. Yeah, and Jeremiah is really depressing. It's not nearly as uplifting as Isaiah with the hope of the Messiah. Now there are some moments, but you think of what Jeremiah was dealing with, and the prophet. So he went through, or Jeremiah went through 3 kings. I think he was the prophet with 3 kings, but the last one, Zedekiah, who was then the last king of Jerusalem, of Israel. After Zedekiah, it was all over. It was all over. And he was a wicked man. There's a cave, Zedekiah's cave. It's actually a quarry under the city of Jerusalem. If you ever get to Jerusalem, I think it's worth going in. They'll also call it Solomon's quarry or Zedekiah's cave. So it's kind of hard to date when they quarried these. Some of the Herodian stones of the Temple Mount, they feel like came out of that quarry, but it's underneath. It's really almost like underneath the, I think it would be the Damascus Gate, down underneath that, and it goes for a long time, and it's so cool. But in there's a tiny trickle of water coming down, and it's lasted all these years, and they call it Zedekiah's tears. Zedekiah's tears. Of course, we know that Mulek, we have in the Book of Mormon, was one of the sons of Zedekiah. Probably the only one that got away, because in 2 Kings towards the end, because he was the last king, it tells the fate of Zedekiah. And remember, Jeremiah is a contemporary of Zedekiah and was involved in this whole, the Babylonian siege that just destroyed Jerusalem. And Zedekiah, what Nebuchadnezzar had done is he had Zedekiah's family slaughtered in front of him. And then right after that, so that would be the last thing he saw. And it says his sons, so maybe I'll just stick with that. I've read some commentary that says some other things, but where it was his whole family. But we know that one son got away, Mulek, right? Which then goes, man, how did he get to the Americas, right? And right around the same time as Lehi. But anyway, so that would be the last thing that he saw with Zedekiah, the murdering of his family or his sons. They poked his eyes out and then led him captive into Babylon. And that's the last we hear of Zedekiah. And so those tears in that cave, the the name's escaping me. It's a fable or a myth or a legend. That's probably a better way. That represents Zedekiah's tears. So that's what Jeremiah was dealing with. He sounds, it's kind of like reading the book of Jacob in the Book of Mormon. Very melancholy, just because, but a lot of sad things going on there, but a lot of really good stuff. So I'll talk more about Jeremiah, my thoughts on it. You guys have your thoughts, and we have some amazing Come Follow Me YouTubers that really put out some awesome stuff. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to go do some deer hunting this week, starting tomorrow. So I probably won't be with you for a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Crazy times. Crazy times. Love you all. Thank you for your love and support. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you, Jared, for your video and all of the work that you do on the Christian Homestead channel. That is very well done and a lot of good information there. So God bless y'all. Talk to you soon.